Alright, now dig up, y'all. This is Eric Moore of the Godz. You're listening to National Rock Review.
This is Mick with National Rock Review. We're sitting here with Eric Moore, the legendary frontman, founder of the Godz out of Ohio. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing pretty good. Good to be alive.
Every day is good to be alive. So.
Yes, it is.
Today we celebrate the history of the Godz, one of the most legendary rock and roll bands that ever graced the country or the world out of Ohio. Tell us why we're here today in celebration of this moment.
Well, after I got done with the last CD, I got a bunch of bad test results back from doctors and shit, and I had to take a year off. And John Godz has been handling the business while I've been down and done great with it. We got like 5 new CDs being released. It's crazy. Vault 1 through 4, tribute stuff, all good stuff. It's really nice. And this is the first show that he's ever put together, and he put it together to help me get enough money so I can stay alive for another 6 months before I start going back to playing. And that's nice. I got a bunch of friends going to lend me a hand, and that feels real good.
Well, the story of the Godz is a timeless legend. You guys have had one of the most storied histories of rock and roll bands that are so close to the pinnacle of global success, always right at the edge, and then things always seem to go south for you one way or another. But you guys have
turn 4, the wheel comes off.
You guys still keep on kicking it, man. Just keep on ticking, keep on going. You guys have a legendary underground following around the world. In fact, we were talking earlier about the first tape is really just even now taking off huge in Russia.
Yeah, that was neat because, as far as rock and roll goes, they're really into it, but the infrastructure there is like 35 years behind the times. The government still controls the radio, real hardcore. So the people that are really into rock and roll, freedom rock and roll, they're digging it. They're passing around bootleg copies of tapes, t-shirts, all that shit. We're getting played on radio stations that have to travel around in vans and trucks like the old days. I think that's cool. And I personally think that, Ronald Reagan and jet airplanes and tanks and all that crap, yeah, it had something to do with it. But the real reason why the Iron Curtain fell was blue jeans, long hair, marijuana, and rock and roll.
That's the American way sometimes.
It works.
So, the legacy of the Godz, obviously you've been around for 40-something years now.
Keep going.
40, 50, well, I was trying to be considerate today. So we'll say 40 is a nice round number.
2016 will be 55 years.
That's a long time, man. So myself personally, when I first came to Lancaster, Ohio back in the early 90s, somebody handed me a Godz cassette, and I was blown away. And you guys, I think, that formed in the late 60s, correct? Early 71?
I did. In the early 70s, I was in the Capital City Rockets on Elektra Records and came back here, put together the Godz, and we started playing live dates and recording in early 1976.
Time out 1 second. What, babe?
I was going to put his cigarette out.
Oh, okay.
It's not in the middle of the interview when he's ready. This is very good.
What's this?
To put your cigarette out in.
Oh, thank you.
You only have a drink, and the plastic's going to be a nasty mess, so. I saw you were getting close.
Yes, that'll work.
There you
You'll
go.
be able to track us.
There we go. Okay, sorry, Reg.
Dang. Then 3, 2, 1, back in. So you guys formed back in the early 70s. You started playing a series of dates around Columbus, Ohio, Alrosa Villa.
We didn't play the Alrosa until a lot later. In Columbus, we started at the Sugar Shack and then moved to the Agora, which is now the Newport. After we had done that, played all the big rooms, they remodeled the Alrosa, and we started playing there because, you know, you can put 1,000 people in there and still have the intimate club kind of feeling, and I like that a lot.
I mean, you played them all, big and small, but what are some of the most timeless memories that stand out to you over the course of your career in the Godz?
Well, most of my fondest memories, people tell me about it after it happened. You know, I kind of got to go with what they saw. I like playing really big places in front of really big crowds. That's neat. It really is. And, you know, when you're in rock and roll, when you put out something to 50,000 people and they give it back to you, that's a rush. But sometimes when you're doing nothing but really big shows and you can't even spit on the front row, you miss the days when if you shook your hair and, you know, you'd get sweat on the front row. And I like that too. I'd never want, you know, playing in front of big people, you know, it's good for your career and good for your bank account. But I like playing places where you can, you know, reach out and touch somebody for real.
You've never been apologetic or repentant for the lifestyle of rock and roll that you've had?
Oh, God, no, I'm going to hell. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with the rock and roll lifestyle. Nobody gets hurt by other people, usually. If there's any pain or dismemberment, it's normally self-inflicted. And, yeah, like working in a carnival. You just go around different place all the time and people work up a sweat and have a good time, and you might be crazy that night, but boy, they can't wait for you to come back to town. No, really. And I like that.
Roadies of a different color.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the CDs you got coming out. You got some re-releases coming out, the Vault series.
Yeah, John's doing that Vault thing, and it turns out that it's really good. Different collections of stuff that hadn't been released. The people that really like the material, they listen to the lyrics. They know from personal experience what we're talking about, and the music moves them. So we give them different versions of stuff, and they enjoy it. And depending a lot of times on what they say to us, we might change something because the audience really tells you what's good and what's bad. You know, you can't go out on stage and play stuff that's just important to you. It was about my great love or whatever it was. Play for the audience. And I think the Vault series is going to be good. He's been doing some tribute CDs where other people do our material. That's neater than shit. I didn't know that all these people, you know, guys in bands and stuff, we've had people send in stuff from Iceland and places, you know, Europe, and it's really neat. And when you hear them doing your material, most of the time it's really good. Sometimes it gets a little rough. You know, sometimes when someone does your song, it's like listening to somebody beat your kids or something. It's rough. But most of the stuff is really great. And it's humbling, and it makes you feel good that there's people out there playing music that, you know, you kind of turn them on the way other people turn you on. And it's kind of cool.
What do you want to be most remembered for in your legacy with the Godz?
Right.
Besides the posters in the post office.
Yeah, right. I'm sure I have a really big file at the Justice Department. Hell, I don't know. I like to leave a good taste in everybody's mouth.
Not a salty one, right?
Yeah.
No. Going back to the first CD, the first album, or even cassette, I should say, the first song on there, Under the Table, the solo at the end really is like, to me, it struck a chord with me when I first heard it, because the solo at the end is really reminiscent of early Iron Maiden, but it preceded the Iron Maiden albums by a year or two.
Yeah.
So do you feel like did you ever listen to the early Iron Maiden albums and say, man, I know that song?
I hear things in a lot of bands that were coming out during that period. You know, the guys in the band could listen to other people a couple years later and know that they listened to us. And that's a compliment. That's way cool. It makes me feel good. And the fact of the matter is, Mark Chatfield, our guitar player, was years ahead of the Judas Priest people and, you know, all those kind of bands. And he was doing that stuff, you know, when they were still in high school. And he's just an excellent guitar player.
Excuse me 1 second. Yeah. So in summation today, we're here to celebrate the legacy of the Godz, help out a friend and fellow rocker musician, Mr. Eric Moore. Is there anything you'd like to say to the world in closing?
Yes, if everybody who appreciates the Godz would simply send to John Guard a $10 bill, I'm set for life.
And pictures of boobs.
That'll work.
Excellent. Eric Moore, the Godz, thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure, sir.